growing up go through different phases in our life of deciding what we want to be when we grow up. I think most kids go through those phases. I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policeman, a doctor, a nurse, whatever. When I was young, the first thing I ever wanted to be was a farmer. I don't know why, but I wanted to be a farmer. Now, understand, I lived in the city. So as far as the eye could see was nothing but asphalt and concrete. So why I wanted to be a farmer, I have no idea. I just thought it was really cool. The idea of working on a farm, tending animals, raising crops, driving a tractor, just seemed really cool to my 7-year-old brain. Obviously, that vision of where my life was going to go never came to be. Now, fast forward 30 years later, and I'm a social worker, and I have a group of kids up on a working farm in Vermont, which had a program for kids from the inner city to go up and have a different experience for a week to understand what it was to live on a farm. And I'm shoveling, at 7 a.m., mind you, piles of manure out of the barn. Now, at any time of the day, manure is aromatic, I'll say. But it has a certain pungency at 7 o'clock in the morning. If there was ever a doubt that farming was not for me, it was erased at that moment. But still, there's something I think about farmers that's intriguing. Because farmers, I think, are people of hope. Especially farmers who raise crops. Every year they till the soil and plant the seeds and wait and wait and wait as they nurture the seeds, and they hope. They hope for rain. They hope for the right balance of sun and rain. If the rain doesn't come when it's supposed to, they continue to hope and to wait. If the crop doesn't grow fast enough or healthy enough, they hope and continue to tend the fields and do whatever extra work they have to make those crops grow. Farmers are people of hope and waiting and belief. So it's no wonder that Jesus uses this image of a farmer, a gardener, to explain God's mercy. Sadly, hope is a particularly precious thing these days. The power of hope is needed in our world, but in particularly today in this community of Rockville Center and Oceanside. The pain that people suffer when hope is taken away is once again at the forefront of our mind in this community. On Friday, a 15-year-old girl named Jameson took her life. The second time this happened in 2 months. And so many people are thinking of this child and her family, her brothers and sisters. Her brother actually goes to this school here. And all of the friends who knew her. This was a precious life, 15 years old, with so much life waiting to be lived. One of my favorite songs from my favorite bands is Five for Fighting back in 2004, who wrote this in their lyrics. 15, there's still time for you. Time to buy and time to choose. Hey, 15, there's never a wish better than this when you only got 100 years to live. Hope, for whatever reason, disappeared for Jameson. It doesn't matter why. It left. And when hope leaves, destruction in some form usually follows. And so in this community, we are even more aware of the need for hope in our lives and the lives of our young people. This gospel today is about hope. The landowner in the gospel loses all hope in this tree. Get rid of it, cut it down, it's useless. Use it for firewood. Again, when we lose hope, destruction is not far behind. But the garden, the image of God in this parable, still has hope. There is still something here worth saving. That's God. This God of Jesus, this God of unending, inexhaustible, life-bearing hope. Because God is not the God who throws away. God is patient with the weak and the stubborn and the hard-hearted. In other words, all of us, myself included. As a matter of fact, in some area of our life, in some part of our spiritual journey to God, in some areas of being a disciple, none of us measure up. None of us measure up as to what it is to be a true disciple. But we have a God who hopes in us and calls us and always sees hope and life in us. See, this story today is not looking at what is, but what is possible. And that's how God sees the world, what is possible. It's not about destruction, but about hope, God's hope in us. God sees what should be and what might be. God sees what can be and calls us to that. And so our God tends and prunes and waits and hopes in every one of us, knowing that there is something in there that needs to be brought to life and nurtured and brought larger and grown and increased. And just as God tends to his relationship to us, we are expected to tend to our relationships with others. You see, there are relationships in our lives, thankfully, that feed us. And those are the ones we work on. Those are the ones that we prune, because they give back to us. And so working on them makes sense. I spend time with this person, we have a great relationship, we talk, the relationship grows, and that's great. And we need to do that. It's important. But there are people that we know who we are in relationship with at home, in our families, at work. They're kind of barren. That don't give us much. It could be that person at work who just isn't happy, who always seems to have a sour face. Our hellos in the hallway, our overtures of kindness to them bear no fruit. It seems pointless. Why take the time every day to be friendly if I get nothing in return? There could be someone in your family that you've grown distant from. Maybe something happened. Maybe just time drew you apart. And when you reach out to work on that relationship, you get nothing back. A phone call that isn't returned, an email that isn't answered. And we say to ourselves, why bother? Why am I beating my head against a wall? Let this relationship go. They obviously don't want it. I've done all I can do. I wash my hands of it. Maybe we have a teenager that has shut us out, which some teenagers can do. I certainly did it to my parents. And for all the energy we put into reaching out to them over and over, we get often very little back. So after it seems like trying and trying and trying, we may say, okay, I'll back off. Doesn't make a difference anyway. According to the gospel today, it is precisely those relationships that seem to be bearing no fruit, that have no life and no future in them, that we need to give extra time and attention to. Extra awareness. Because that's what God does for us. When God reaches out to us and calls us and hopes in us, and we give so little back because we are all so busy in our lives, God continues to hope and call and prune and bring to life. And so as we are treated by God, so we must treat others. But here's the thing. There's also the first part of the gospel. And we cannot ignore the first part of the gospel. Jesus is saying time does run out. There is a time in which things can happen. Relationships do die if we don't tend to them. Marriages do fail if we don't care for them and wake up and nurture them. Our time in this world is not unlimited. That's what Isaiah is saying in the first reading. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Isaiah doesn't say, seek the Lord when you're ready, or call upon him when you get around to it. And that's not meant to bring fear. God isn't about fear. But the first part of the gospel is about is simply stating truth, the simple matter-of-fact reality. The time does run out. We don't have an unlimited amount of time to nurture the relationships in our life and our relationship with God. Time runs out in this world when God can come into our life. When we can turn back to God in enough time to change our life, to live in a meaningful way, in a way that touches other people's lives and makes a difference. We can miss the chance to be who we are meant to be in God's plan. So we need to change in time. Now, can we turn back to God in the bitter end? Absolutely. God's mercy allows that. But how much is lost? How much can we never get back? See, time runs out in our relationships that don't bear fruit in our life, the ones that don't pay off, that aren't what they are meant to be. They can wither. And eventually, if we try anything, it becomes too little, too late. We have to remember the reality of time. We are all, my sisters and brothers, planted in the garden of the Spirit. God has given us gift upon gift, blessing upon blessing. God has called and taught and spoken and tended to all of us in our lives. So the question of the Spirit today is a simple one. Have we given back as God has given to us? And I don't mean have we done good things, or do we help people, or do we volunteer our time. These are all good things and important things and things that every Christian should be doing. There's something deeper. The deeper question is, do we have a relationship with God? A relationship. Not do we know God, not do we admire God, but do we have a relationship with God? It is a question that we have to answer for ourselves, and do not answer that question too quickly. Before we do good things and help others, God wants us in relationship. He wants to hear our voice every day, to be part of our daily life. We are being called by a patient and loving God to know the Spirit more deeply. But time does run out. There will come a time when we have missed something and we can't get it back. When we have missed a call, missed a moment with God, missed an opportunity to heal a relationship, and we don't get a second chance. What Christ calls us to on this morning is to seek God now. Call to God while there is still time. Amen. Let it be so.